The Port Washington Common Council meeting on Tuesday, May 16th, 6:30. All alders are present. Please join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. And I'm looking for a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under the mayor's business, just a couple of quick things here. This week is Peace Officers Week. I will be bringing a proclamation to the third shift this week. And just a reminder to our citizens in the community to take a moment to recognize and honor the sacrifices that are made by our men and women who serve us in the safety sector in policing. Also, thank you to the police department, the chief, and the honor guard on Saturday night at midnight for honoring the 4 fallen police officers who gave their lives this year, unfortunately already, in the state of Wisconsin. And I appreciated them doing that. Also wanted to remind the community that the Memorial Day Parade on Monday of Memorial Day will be at 10:30 in downtown, followed by a program in Veterans Park across the street from the Legion. 2 other things, just want to say thank you to all of the people who were involved and helped me out. Susan, city clerk, Alderwoman Postel for the mayor for a day last Friday. We had a really fun day with our 6 fourth graders from our 3 elementary schools. And just really wanted to highlight that Alan Edmonds, they work 4 10s in the winter, and their COO, Bob Steffes, came in and gave the kids a very cool tour for the day, as well as my friend Taylor Snyder out there. He was staff for the event, and he did a very nice job. But the kids did a great job representing themselves, their families, and their schools. And I think the highlight of the day was when they got to go to their schools and present their principals and faculty with a Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation. And then the last thing is I just wanted to point out Representative Brooks and Senator Strobel have been working at the state level, and I know that Mr. Brown, our city administrator, and I are working on a couple of proclamations. One of the things in the state budget this year that the Joint Finance Committee is looking up is to look at the distribution of the supplemental county and municipal aid under the current formula. And there is right now there's a proposal through the legislature in Joint Finance that would shift every community in the state of Wisconsin. And it's legislation that I would ask council as well as community members to reach out to both Senator Strobel and to Representative Brooks, asking them to support it as well as vote for it. Currently, under the county and municipal aid formula, the city of Port Washington receives $493,631. The shift would be an additional $315,975, or an aid increase of over 64%. The entire county of Ozaukee County significantly benefits from this because we are low spending communities and a low spending county by nature, and Port Washington would greatly benefit from that. That formula has not been touched since, if I'm not mistaken, 1993, so my senior year of college. I think the world has changed just a little bit. So if you get the opportunity to reach out, they have multiple other bills that would be very beneficial to Port Washington, especially with our opportunities to potentially invest in our infrastructure for future development. So the Republicans and Democrats on Joint Finance Committee would greatly appreciate hearing from us. I personally wrote them letters, and then we'll also potentially be going to Madison to testify on those bills. So if anyone is interested, please contact me, or at the very least, make sure to reach out to our legislators. Any questions for me about that or anything else from the mayor's update? Okay, then moving into the officer reports. I hope you got a chance to look at those. Again, commendations all around for the depth and breadth of those, and I cannot wait to see us utilize them in our communication pieces. Mr. Crane's drone is fantastic between the burn photos and the different shifts and plantings and everything else. He could compete with Mr. Curtin, I think, eventually for photos. So with that, then, we're going to move into public comments and appearances. You're always welcome to make public comments and appearances. You get up to 3 minutes, and if you need more time, make sure to contact myself or our city administrator. Is there anyone with any public comments? Anyone with any public comments? New puppy announcement or anything? Nothing? No? All right. Moving into then standing committee councils and standing council committees. A1, consideration and possible action on renewal of alcohol and cabaret licenses for the 23-24 licensing year. The issue is the Finance and Licensing Committee and Common Council are being asked to review and approve the renewal of applications for alcohol licenses, including Class A for beer, Class A liquor, Class B beer winery, Class B liquor, and Class C wine. Also being approved are annual cabaret licenses. The license year is July 1st through June 30th, 23 through 24. The staff recommends the full listing by license category of all establishments that have submitted applications in our packet. The city clerk has reviewed and approved all applications and required supporting documentations, and all fees have been paid, and the background checks recorded, completed, and approved by Chief Hingus. Ms. Westerbeek.
All of the licenses, applications are present. The Class A, just a quick review. I'm sure you remember this from last year. The Class A are cash and carry licenses, not for consumption on premise. The Class Bs are for consumption on premise at the establishments. They can be combination of liquor and beer. Class C is a wine license. You must have a restaurant to qualify for a Class C wine. We do have a winery in the city, so that Class B also includes a winery license. They're also permitted by the state of Wisconsin for vine to cellar. The background checks were sent. I was anticipating those be returned to me and approved by Chief Hingus. However, there were quite a few for them to review, plus they're reviewing all of the bartender license renewals right now as well. So those have not all come in, so I would recommend approval pending that the background checks all come back approved by Chief Hingus. And once granted by the council, they are not valid until I actually issue them as the last step, which I would not do until those had come in cleared. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Sigwart.
Yeah, are all of those licensed, the number of the license available to us, are they all based on population?
The licenses we are issuing now are quota licenses. They are based on population. We do have a few of those licenses left, but we also have 4 reserve licenses, which you must issue quota licenses before you can step into your reserve licenses.
Okay,
So total, I believe we have 8
Thank you.
available.
Any other questions, Mr. Benning?
I was just going to move to approve, contingent on the background checks being successfully completed.
All right, so I have a motion to approve with the contingency on the background checks successfully completed. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Alderman Apostle. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Moving into 7A2, consideration and possible action on a 1-day extension of alcohol premises for Port Main Street Port Festival of the Arts event. The Finance and License Committee and Common Council are being asked to review and approve a request from Port Main Street for downtown establishments to obtain a 1-day only license to extension of their Class B alcohol licenses to allow the sale, serving, and consumption of beer or wine in plastic cups only in designated areas of the Port Washington Festival of the Arts, June 3rd, 2023, between 11 and 5 p.m. The recommendation from the clerk is that she has reviewed the request and recommends approval as presented. Ms. Westerbeek.
So those of you that are familiar, which I'm sure you are, the Port Main Street does the Fall Festival annually. They are bookending the beginning of the summer festival season with the Port Festival of the Arts event. They ran this event on a much smaller scale last year, and it was very popular, so they want to expand it to use all of Franklin Street, which would be closed during the period that the event is being held on Saturday, June 3rd. The ends of the streets, starting at Grand and going up to Jackson, there will be stage areas that will have bands. They will also have barricades, and they are looking into large equipment to also bookend the ends of the streets for security and safety measures. So that's all being reviewed now. I have not issued their event permit application approval yet. We've had our first meeting. That it looks to be in order, but there are a few small things that we're finishing up with that. And their vendors are finishing with their signing with Main Street. This particular piece of it is for the establishments to be able to sell at their brick and mortar buildings, beer and wine in plastic cups only. Patrons can consume within their establishment or outside within the area in front of their establishment. So this is something we do annually. Again, you've done this for the Fall Festival. There is a list you'll find in your packet of the establishments that are participating. Those that have dots, there were additional signatures I was still retrieving. I finished my last one today for Bernie's Fine Meats because the agents of the alcohol licenses had to sign. So that's all complete, and if approved this evening, I would issue one-day permit extensions for them to hang in their establishments. That allows them to do that for that day during that period of time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Mr. Sigwart?
Yeah, do we charge Main Street anything for any services with this or not?
Port Main Street for their event permit application pays that fee for the one-day application, and the $10 for the temporary Class B retailer's license, which they take out to do their own serving of beer and wine within the footprint of the event. This is for the establishments only that already have alcohol licenses.
Right, but do we, are we gonna use city trucks that we block barricade with, or are there private trucks? Or
That's something that they're working with, either within city equipment, would be probably fire trucks, or they're looking into others that may donate their time and their vehicle, other companies and businesses that want to assist by donating that to the city.
Any other questions on the alcohol premise extension? Mr. Benning?
I'll move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
If that's Mr. Pleitner, I think you nanosecond quicker. All right, there's a motion and approval, or motion and second. Is any questions or concerns on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? I think the best part of that day is John's Pizza by the Slice. At least the art's awesome too, but that you can step out on the street and get some John's Pizza. Mike, will you join me for one? Sure. Now we can have a beer and a cup and a. All right, excellent. 7A3, consideration and possible action on resolution 23-6, authorizing the execution and delivery of the satisfaction of a mortgage for Prairie's Edge. Staff recommends approving the resolution for staff to take the necessary actions to work with BCH Holdings to satisfy their mortgage related to the lands in the south phase of the Prairie's Edge mixed-use development. The recommended motion is to pass it. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. BCH Holdings has a scheduled closing for a parcel of land in the south phase later this month on May 24th, and they've requested that the city provide a payoff statement with the intentions of paying the mortgage for the south phase. So what this resolution is seeking to do is provide staff the authorization to move forward with all necessary actions related to the satisfaction of the mortgage and any associated actions related to it. So what staff would be seeking is a recommended motion for approval. That is, I move that Resolution 2023-6 be approved, or motion to accept staff's recommendation.
Any questions for Mr. Brown? All right, then I'll be looking for a motion to approve.
Well, I'll, after a very, very long time and tortuous process, I'll move that we approve Resolution 2023-6.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any questions or concerns on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Excellent. Mr. Benning, you are 3 for 3 tonight on the motions. Well done. Let's go. Administration Committee, number 1 is consideration and possible action on the tourism entity agreement with the Port Washington Tourism Council. The issue is should the Common Council approve a tourism entity agreement, and the staff recommends approving the tourism entity agreement for Port Washington Tourism Council Incorporated to coordinate tourism promotion and development for the city of Port Washington. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will briefly go over the tourism entity agreement, and then Wayne Crucial, the executive director for the Port Washington Tourism Council, is here this evening, and he'll give us a short presentation about the objective goals and the activities that the Tourism Council is planning on working on in the near term and over the next year. So as many of you know, the Tourism Council has been the tourism entity for the city for at least 40 years. And in that time, they've worked on tourism development and promotion and coordinating those activities as outlined by state statute. And really what this agreement is seeking to do is formalize that relationship by, again, identifying them as the city's sole tourism entity. And just as a matter of background and taking a step back for a second, the city has an 8% hotel motel tax. And out of that amount that is collected, 70% of that has to go to the Tourism Council. And that is the funding that they receive to coordinate and take their activities out. So there's a lot of different key points in this agreement. It identifies the 70%, that they're the organization that coordinates tourism promotion and development, and a host of other things related to their operations and just making sure that there's clear lines between what the city provides and the expectations, and also what the Tourism Council provides in their expectations. It's a 10-year agreement that goes until March 31st, 2033. And at that time, we would look at probably doing the exact same agreement. But over that period of time, it provides certainty about where the relationship stands. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I would turn it over to Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne, Mr. Church, Wayne, why don't you step up and then go through your presentation, and then we'll ask questions when you're finished.
All right, thank you.
Welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First of all, thank you all for taking the time to listen to this and considering the agreement that has been put forward. I want to start with, go ahead, Bob, by the way. Just kind of talk about what the who, what, where, when, why of the Tourism Council. It was formed in 1996. We are office, I'm sure you all know, in the Pebble House. The council is comprised of 9 members, and for the first time in, I don't know how long, 20 plus years, Bill Shannon III is no longer the president of the council. Instead, Kathy Wilger has taken on that task. Bill's still on the council, but has decided he wanted to step down as the president. Through the council, through me, essentially, as the executive director, we're responsible for promoting Port Washington, and it's not just events, and it's not just downtown, but it's actually all of Port Washington. And the council is funded by room tax. As Mr. Brown said, it's 8% room tax, just kind of a point of reference. This past year, there were $370,000 in room tax collected, which means we received approximately $230,000 in room tax. And the city received about 110, which is interesting that that's a 25% increase from 2021. So good news is we're coming out of COVID. And when you look back to 2019 or 2019, when before COVID, we're up actually almost 50% in room tax revenue, mainly because of the short-term rentals, which really received no money from them in 2019. So it's starting to be a growing segment. Go ahead, Bob. Oh, I'm sorry, back that up. I didn't realize you changed it. So when I took the job, I think you all knew Kathy Tank. She retired last July, and I took over the job. I came in and I actually met with Tony and told him right away that there were a lot of things I needed to formalize. We had to update the bylaws. There was nothing in the bylaws that even mentioned an executive director. We needed to execute a lease because the lease, which fortunately you all, and we thank you for executing that lease with us, the lease was expired for 10 years and was with the Chamber of Commerce. We execute this marketing entity agreement, which hopefully will happen in just a minute. And then we wanted to conduct a tourism assessment. One had been done in 2007, and we just needed to really take a look at where the city was and tourism was today. And finally, from that, we want to develop a marketing plan and then develop the metrics and a dashboard that we can use to see how effective we're doing. Go ahead, Bob. So one of the things that came up, and I put this up only to show you the bolded words really to me are the most important. Our mission is to really have a positive economic impact through results-driven marketing strategy. So really make this a very formal process, something that we can measure and make sure that we're doing the best job possible. We want to inspire our visitors so that they have a great time. They want to come back and visit us, or they may want to move here. And finally, it's also a benefit to our community. So that's what our mission is. We also, go ahead, Bob. We also decided there'd been a lot of talk about what is our brand? What are we? And we kind of through a lot of different discussion came up with the fact that we're obviously located on the shores of Lake Michigan, only 30 miles from Milwaukee. And that's a key thing. We kind of walk a tightrope. For everybody around here, we need to tell people in Milwaukee, hey, we're only 30 minutes away. But everybody upstate who doesn't necessarily want to come to see Milwaukee, we need to say, hey, we're a whole 30 minutes away. So it's important that that's in there. We have abundant outdoor activities. We have great dining, terrific retail, and the small town historical charm. And the last part of this is actually a direct shot at Cedarburg, and that is all without the hassle. I can tell you, being in the visitor center, how many people come over and say, oh, I like it here so much better because I can easily walk and I'm not going to get run down on the street, and there's plenty to do and see. So,
Wayne, could you repeat that like 3 more times?
yeah.
Oh, it's recorded? Okay,
Yeah, it's recorded.
excellent. Yes, all right. Go Pirates.
Go ahead. So one of the things we first did, as I said, was the tourism assessment. This was done and led by our representative from the State Department of Tourism. That we had a task force of 8 people, including Alderman Sigwart, who we met 3 or 4 times, and we did a SWOT analysis, as I think the city has done a few times, and looked at where we're at. Bob, can you move to the second page? I'm not going to bore you with all the things in there. The couple of the biggest takeaways from me were that I wanted to put in here, but I didn't think it'd be a good thing to do, is it's really the lake. When we surveyed our visitors, surveyed our residents, surveyed people who had indicated an interest in Port Washington, it really, half the time came back to it's about the lake. They love the beauty of the lake. They love the fact that we're right on it. And you can interact with the lake, where there's a lot of communities up and down Lake Michigan that you can't. So you can see from this that we identified some strategies that we need to look at going forward, some developmental priorities that we'll be addressing. Some of it is things that tourism can address, but several of them are things that need to be addressed probably here with Main Street and some other parts of the community. Go ahead, Bob. From that, as I said, so I showed you the list before. So now we're all the way down now to where we need to develop the metrics and dashboards to measure the success. Go ahead, Bob. So we started developing a marketing plan and literally starting from scratch. It's interesting to note, probably outside of 5 or 6 communities, larger communities in Wisconsin, most small towns like our size do not have a marketing plan. They just kind of wing it as they go, which I asked several people for a copy of theirs and was told they didn't exist. So I kind of started this from scratch, and this is I'm a process guy. My background is in business, specifically fast food for a long time. And when you look at this circle, it's what I see is the way we get visitors. People are inspired to come visit. They need to find out about us. They need to do more investigation. They make a decision to come here. They actually have their visit. And in the perfect world, they're so inspired they go back again and over. And we know we have people come every year here. And so there's many like that. Bob, could you forward? There's another way to look at this in the business world. This is called a sales funnel. You start with a large universe, and you work your way down to those that actually do that decision. So this is important. I use this as I went forward, and you'll see it in one of the final slides. I've developed a dashboard, and it's coordinated to the colors. So go ahead, Bob. The first one is awareness. You have to be aware that Port Washington exists before you can even consider coming there. Think of it this way. If you're, again, from my fast food background, if I ask you today, where are you going to go for lunch tomorrow? You probably have 4 or 5 places pop in your head right away. That's your consideration set. If I'm asking you, we're going to go for vacation this summer, again, you may have certain things. So when we start asking people around the state, around the Midwest, where are you going to go for a vacation? We want them to think of Port Washington. So there's a lot of ways we do that. Social and digital media. Right now, print advertising is probably the largest way that we do it. And a new thing that's coming up, it's called content creators. These are people you actually pay to help develop your message and do articles for you and provide print and pictures. So we're working with them also. Obviously, we're on all the different platforms that are out there that we get our message out. I'm sure most of you may have seen it if you're on Facebook or any of these other ones. Go ahead, Bob. We can measure how well we're doing on Facebook. I know this is not real dark, but this year so far. The big things we measure are impressions. How many eyeballs are we seeing? And that I have to rely on our social media people to provide us that information. And clicks. How many times once you see it did you actually click on it? That to me is the most important measurement, because if we're getting a lot of clicks, that means we've done a good job messaging it that people have an interest. They're at least willing to take the next step and get a little bit more invested. The 2 bottom ones show you ones that I use to measure. We use a social media company out of the Fox Valley. And so I use this with him to make sure he's doing the job I think he should be. Go ahead, Bob, moving on. We do a lot of print. I would say up till this past fall, we were probably 80% print. They'd be magazines, newspapers, a variety of different places. You can see on here, on the far right, Daily Herald, that's Chicago suburbs, NorthwestIndiana.com, and Capital Newspapers is out of Madison. That was all print. In fact, those 3 print publications last year probably accounted for about 1/3 of our budget. This year I changed it, and in all 3 cases, we're doing just digital with them. And what's nice with that is they all have their own email list that they will email our message to their subscribers and the people that they have in their database. But we do a lot of that still. That's something that will continue on. Anybody that knows what's going on in the media world, print is unfortunately dying. Yeah, sorry, Chris. And so we have to adjust. It is interesting. Obviously, as I said, Bill Shannon III is on the council, and I presented this to him, and he said, "Yeah, digital is the way to go. We have to find a way to we have to get our message out." Go ahead, Bob. We also do very specific publications. There's a company that does a premier golf magazine. It's just only about golf courses, and we in there we've advertised this year and said use Port Washington as your home base to go out and play golf. In 45 minutes we have all these great golf courses. There's a bike trail magazine that's for those that are into biking. It's a very widely read magazine. We're on public radio, and then the other 3 logos that you see up there are all companies that produce very specific content for us into very niche markets. If you look on the right of that blue bar, this year we're going to dip our toe into streaming radio and streaming TV. And we're doing that up in the Fox Valley as it's fairly inexpensive. Starting in June, we'll be on radio up there, June, July, and August, and TV as well. Go ahead. So the reason we're doing that, I stole this from the State Department of Tourism. If you look at it, there's on average, this is last year, the average household spends 122 hours streaming that's connected TVs, not cabled, or it's through the through Wi-Fi. The number of services per household is 5.4, and that's a 29% growth. People are moving. I mean, sure, if I took a quick survey in this room, probably find at least half of you do not have cable, do not have satellites, all these streaming services. And so we need to be playing in that arena. Go ahead, Bob. So the next step in that funnel is interest. So we've gotten, at least they're aware of us now. Now we need to make sure they take more of an interest in us and want to learn more. So that's the continuing marketing, more detailed information to help someone decide. And we do that through a variety of places. And then a visitor guide. So the first and foremost place, go ahead, that we direct people to and then where we get interest is our website. So if you haven't been on the new website, we relaunched it. This is an image of some paddleboarding last fall out on South Beach. So just so everybody knows, if you're looking, and I'm trying to share this with as many entities as I can, we hired a professional photographer, and he comes in, he's been in 3 times in the last 9 months, and he's doing photography for us that's very, very good. And we're trying to spread it across all the, like Main Street uses a lot of these images. So who's ever talking out into the general population, they're seeing the same images for Port. Again, we want to get that, the brand developed and people relate to it quickly. Go ahead, move forward. So with the nice thing with the website, once we get them to the website, now we can really do a lot of measurement. And this is last year's, just a few of the different things we can do. We can measure how many times people look at different pages on the website. We can look at how many times they visit. Are they a new user? How long are they on the site? How did they get there? Did they come because they went onto Facebook and saw something they liked and clicked over? Did they get someone send them an email and they clicked through that? So we can measure all that. And the other one on this particular slide is we can measure by what state they are from when they go on to click. Now, you look at that graph, the blue line there, that's number 1, that's Illinois. So we get more clicks from Illinois residents than we do even Wisconsin. If you look at the green line, that's New York, which you would think, why New York? Well, if you all know, there's a New York or a Port Washington, New York, and we figured that out come September, and so you're able to go in, it's called meta tags, into your website, and so now we've really dropped the number of people from New York that will click into our site. Go ahead, Bob. Once we get them into the website, our hope is that they would want to request a visitor guide. I would hope when I first came in that we could get rid of the visitor guide because we spent a lot of money in printing them and distributing them, but the reality is people want the paper still. So we send out about 10,000 of these a year, and it's an important piece because there's a lot of information in there that people are looking for when they're trying to decide where to travel. Go ahead, Bob. So now we get to the decision point. So we need, again, to get them to decide, we need to continue to be a presence. We need the content creators to really magnify our message. Whatever we're trying to get to, like right now we're saying, in fact, there was an e-blast that went out today that were sent out saying, ever thought about charter fishing? We've got one of the largest fleets on this side of Lake Michigan. Please come to Port Washington. And oh, by the way, here's where you clicked to get a reservation for a hotel room. So again, we're trying to really hone in on it and reinforce those messages. Go ahead. So one of the things I started late last fall was, I call them e-blasts, it's email marketing. Right now we have about 1,400 people that we send these to about every 2 weeks. If anybody's interested, if you're not getting, you would like to, go to the front page of the website, scroll all the way to the bottom, you can sign up there for it. I work with Main Street and anybody I can to promote whatever is being promoted in this. Like the one today, I worked with the charter fishermen to add links to their boats. Go ahead. Finally, the action. Okay, people are coming to. We get them to finally come to Port Washington. This is the payoff. This is where I really want to get the information. What caused them to come here? Unfortunately, go ahead. We can't measure. I can't get the data. You would think the hotels would have the data. No, they don't. There's no way right now for us to collect where people are coming from. I can in a very broad sense, maybe by zip code, which helps a little bit, but I want to really drill down into not only where they came from, but why they came. What did they see? What influenced them to come? So after a lot of thought, we decided to, go ahead. We're going to come up with a process now, starting June 1st. On the right side of the screen in white, you'll find this sheet of paper and acrylic panel, and asking the various visitors to the hotels to click on the QR code and fill out a 6-question survey. And I'll show you the survey in a second. For that, on the left-hand side, should be here tomorrow, I've got these decorative Port Washington magnets, refrigerator magnets coming that we're going to give people, thanking them to do it. Hopefully, we're going to do it at the 3 hotels, hopefully get them as many of the short-term rentals as we possibly can, and probably also put it in Java Dock, various businesses in town so we can get a pretty good sampling. The nice thing is if you go from Java Dock to, let's say, Dockside Deli, and we had it there, and you try to do it twice, it won't work. Once you do it, that's it, you're done. So we won't have a lot of duplication. Go ahead, Bob. All right, I don't think you can read that, but basically the questions are, where are you coming from? Why did you decide to come here? What are you going to do? Gender and age, and what can we do to do a better job next time you come? So we're trying to give them a chance to give us some suggestions. Now you see, you're not going to read this, but because it's so involved, but this is kind of a summation, and this is what my report card is going to be to the Tourism Council every month in terms of our performance. How are we doing? So again, I've taken under awareness is the social media metrics that we have. The next is the internet metrics. The bottom one there, which unfortunately you can't see that well, the small box with the various colors of the bar graph, that's our results from our emails. We know we're getting about 25% openings, which is very good. So we send that, the original list is from people who've said, I want a visitor guide. So they obviously have an interest in Port. Then we measure where we're getting requests for visitor guides from. So again, we can see what the process is. The bottom graph in greens, those 3 greens, that's all made up because I don't have any data. So that'll start populating as of, hopefully, June 1st. So go ahead, Bob. And how do we manage the process? This is something I came up with that for myself. So I deal with a lot of different media types who are trying to sell us advertising or be part of whatever we're trying to do. And so this is our a template that we use to kind of month to month, it keeps me focused in, all right, this is what we're doing, this is our message, this is who we're talking to. Please note that our target market is 35-44, so it's a younger demographic. Reason for that is actually that age group will spend more when they travel, mainly because they have kids. You would think, well, we know we see a lot of retired and older folks traveling through Port, which is great, but it's the families that spend all the money. So we're really targeting it. We have enough activities here in town that we should be able to get those people here. Go ahead, Bob. So what's changed? A couple things we've done. One, back to my days in fast food, we have a saying, you fish when the fishing's good, so don't spend a lot of money on advertising in January, February, November, December, rather spend in the summer. In the past, it was a pretty much even spend. We'll spend 65% of our advertising dollars in May, June, July, and August. So we're really cramming in a short period of time. We'll spend 2.5 more times this year than we did last year for social and digital media. So we're going to where the people are looking for information. And rather than just shotgunning out the advertising, we're doing very specific pushes in the Fox Valley, in the Chicagoland market, and in the Milwaukee market. In the fall, we'll do Madison. And we're doing very specific times with very specific messages so we can kind of measure and see, does it work? And finally, the Department of Tourism has been a great resource for us. And also, they spend a lot of money on research and advertising. And our goal really is to take what they do and take it to the next level. Go ahead, Bob. So the goals, I'd love to give you a bunch of numbers right now. because of changes with data that I can and can't get, the basic goals we have is to raise awareness, support, to increase the number of overnight stays. Obviously, that's where the room tax dollars come in. Increase in-state traffic. And finally, the big one for me right now is to develop better metrics. Go ahead. So I was talking about state of Wisconsin and what they do and how much they spend. Their overall philosophy on trying to, and what they see as their target group is they say Wisconsin's spirited nature sparks unexpected stories, big and small. What we want to do is say, yeah, that's great. That's what Wisconsin is. I know when they're advertising in Minnesota, so we're going to be in Minnesota when they are. I know when they're advertising in Green Bay, we're going to be in Green Bay when they are. Go ahead. So what we're going to do is say, yeah, that's true, but visit Port Washington to experience your story. So that's how we're going to leverage what they're doing and hopefully get the most that we can for the dollars. So that's it. Any questions?
Thank you very much for that, Wayne. I appreciate that. I have a couple wonderings for you, just in our relationship between tourism and the city of Port Washington. Wondering if your monthly scorecard, if we could get a copy of that we could put in our council staff report so we could kind of see and monitor that.
Sure.
The city's, the taxing contribution to tourism is a significant amount of money, and I think it would be great for us to be able to see your strategic efforts and how those indicators are being shifted. And then I also wanted to thank you. I'm really grateful for your professionalism in here and the shifting to that measure strategy, being very intentional in those two relationships, doing something and then seeing the impact and the outcomes that come from that. And I also wanted to thank you for your commitment to working with Main Street and the other organizations in a very collaborative kind of handout nature, like here's what we can do for you and here's how we can help you. So thank you for that shift. It's noticeable.
Great, thank you.
Other questions or comments from council? Mr. Benning?
Wayne, in one of the early on slides, one of the ones with a lot of stuff on it, which looked good, and I'd love to get a copy of this deck. You had made, I think I caught a comment that with Fish Day gone, and I didn't read
Oh, no, fish when the fishing's good.
Okay.
Yeah, and basically spend money when you get the best chance.
And I guess I hope you're tied in with a new Fish Day organization, because they're enthusiastic and I think they will do a phenomenal job, but I just know that my discussions with them, they're challenged on some of the marketing, so I hope we're tying that in together.
Yes, in fact, Friday I'm meeting with Andy Hill we're reviving the Port Washington Tourism Council grant program.
Okay.
So they're going to be hopefully the first recipient of some monies specifically for marketing. So yes, we're working very closely with them.
The other thing that the city has worked with an organization to put together a video of, and I don't remember all the four areas, but I hope that you're connected into seeing that video and leveraging it where you can. I think it's available on our website now, if I'm correct. Yes. So you may want to take a look at that one. And then the other one, I was curious on the hits. Texas was listed on there.
Yeah, Texas is large. I can't explain that one. I don't know. We do enough national magazines, travel magazines, and different things that I know they're being hit there. But yeah, that's like in the top 5.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I'm glad.
Colorado is another one.
Is it?
Yeah, I can't explain it.
Okay.
Hopefully I can someday, but not right now.
And I'll echo Ted's sentiment. I like the process-driven approach that you're taking to this and trying to get that continuous loop going and how we can continuously improve. It's not what I think, it's what those tourists coming through think. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Gasper?
Sure. First, thank you. I think you're doing a great job with tourism. My question is, with the agreement being for 10 years, is there a reason why we're going 10 years versus, say, 5 years to match the lease agreement with the Pebble House?
The only reason it was originally when I actually did both agreements at the same time. I mean, I originated them, and it was to tie together. The way the lease is written, it's a 5 with a 5-year option. So in both cases, both the lease and this agreement, there's outs for both the city and us. So I can't imagine why we would want to get out of that relationship. But That's the only reason why. It was that way because originally the lease was written for 10 years.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, Mr. Pleitner?
Just really quick, I guess I would ask Wayne, seems like we're doing more and more work with the Department of Tourism. I mean, can you classify our relationship or Washington's relationship, your council's relationship with the Department of Tourism now?
Very good, very strong. I talk to our representative weekly. I see him all the time, and he's actually worked. He's done a little bit of work with the Fish Day group, and he again led our tourism assessment process. They're very good. They're the department in and of itself. I'm very impressed with. I'm amazed at how much they can get accomplished. They lead the way. I'm following what they're doing because they spend a lot of money on research. So when they do what they're able to do, what I wish I could do, and that is really go out and measure what's going on. They get it to the point where they can measure not only just what state someone's from, but what neighborhood they're from. So yeah, they've got the data. You want to use it.
I'd likely be most impressed if they brought back the Escape to Wisconsin bumper stickers. Remember those things? They're like a mile long.
Yeah.
Well, any other questions, or otherwise we'd be looking for a motion to approve the agreement with the Tourism Council of Port Washington.
Also move.
Moved, there's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
There's been motion and seconded. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us on to an ordinance establishing fees for non-ambulance lift assist provided by the city fire or ambulance departments. This is a first reading, so there's no action tonight. Should the Common Council approve ordinance 2023-12 to establish a non-emergency lift assist fee, the staff recommends the ordinance 2023-12 to be approved at a second reading. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as was stated, the proposed ordinance aims to address the issue of non-emergency lift assist at assisted living facilities and nursing care facilities. So I just want to be clear about that. This is not applicable to residential properties. In approving this ordinance, what the council would essentially be doing is establishing a lift assist fee. And then there would be subsequent steps that would happen after that is approved. So the first thing would be that a resolution would come to this body for consideration that would amend the license and fee schedule and set whatever the schedule may be related to the lift assist fee. Now, the fire department is currently working on what that looks like, and it's anticipated that sometime in June that resolution would come before the council. The second piece related to this topic is that the Police and Fire Commission, in partnership and recommendation from the fire department, would establish what are the procedural guidelines related to lift assist. So that's kind of the role that they would fulfill in this process. And also, the other thing I would add is that on Monday, June 5th, the PFC will review this ordinance as well. I think it's worth noting, too, that this is really part of a larger strategy or effort to really do two things related to lift assist and I would say more generally, an aging population where we're having repeated calls where we have to go to those residences or different locations. So there's really two objectives here. There's risk reduction, and then the second piece is community awareness. Related to the risk reduction piece, it's really trying to determine how we can help, and I would say it's related to the awareness piece to educate the public on what what resources are available out there, and then connect them with those resources. And then I think the awareness piece is working with the different facilities to have a better definition and expectation about what really is an emergency and what is not an emergency, and how we can provide a level of service that utilizes the resources that we have in a responsible manner. So that is kind of the major highlights of this broader strategy. Again, it's aimed at implementing more of a community risk reduction approach. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And also Deputy Chief DeBoer is here too for any questions that you may have for him.
I wanted to thank you, Tony and Rick, Mr. Eberhard, for putting together this ordinance. The root and the history of this ordinance is it comes from a report done by Mr. Brown and the fire chief about EMS services in the city of Port Washington, the overutilization of private healthcare companies and organizations to rely upon emergency services for lift assists. And we look to other communities to see what strategies and tactics they employ. And communities like Port Washington that have assisted living centers have ordinances in place that provide a fee schedule to both ensure that the city can recover some cost, which is not the intention, but more importantly, ask that the professional care institutions, provide the services immediately and respectfully to their residents instead of waiting upon us. And then my greatest concern or worry out of the presentation was that this jams up emergency services while we might be doing a lift assist, and we might have a very significant issue down the road, and then we have to wait for a rig from a neighboring community to get there while we're doing the 8th, 9th, or 10th, 20th lift at a private healthcare institution when it's their responsibility. So thank you for your diligence on this, and I'll be reaching out to PFC as well. I think this is an important step in allowing our police and fire to put their time and efforts into where it's significantly needed. Mr. Sigwart.
Yeah, I met this morning with my son-in-law, who was an EMT for a number of years in New Jersey. And they had an increasing lift assist issue. And while he was in lifting and assisting a person that did not need medical treatment to go to a hospital, he had a friend of his die from a heart attack. And because there wasn't an ambulance available, no emergency service. So my question is there something that triggered more calls from these different facilities? It seems like we've had an increase in the number of calls.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. Just like any other industry, healthcare took a pretty big hit during COVID. All of these facilities are short-staffed.
Okay.
I also think there's a component where they have implemented no lift policies to protect their employees from work-related injuries and instead shift that liability to other services to do that for them.
I see. Makes sense. Thank you.
Which again, and which is why I so appreciate this ordinance, because it is not the community's responsibility to take on the liabilities of private institutions, for profit or not for profit. So I appreciate that color and those other pieces. Other questions? Mr. Gasper, did you have one? Oh, okay. I saw your light's on, so. Okay, so again, this is a first reading, reviewing this. Assistant Chief, thank you for coming over tonight. We appreciate it, and we're gonna keep moving. All right, so at this point then, we're gonna go into a public hearing. Notice has been given. The public hearing is on a proposed ordinance number 23-11, amending, renumbering, and/or repealing portions of Chapter 10, Health and Sanitation, Chapter 18, Subdivision Control, Chapter 20, zoning ordinance of the municipal code to require buildings within a subdivision and other divisions of land to connect to be served by public sewer and water facilities, and to prohibit the development of subdivisions and other divisions of land using private on-site sanitary sewer or water. Calling this hearing to order. Are there any speakers in favor? Any speakers in favor? Any speakers in favor? Seeing none. Any speakers against? Any speakers against? Any speakers against? Seeing none, close this hearing, and that brings us to 8A2, review and possible action on ordinance 23-11, amending, renumbering, and/or repealing portions of Chapter 10, Chapter 18, Chapter 20 of the municipal code to require subdivisions and other divisions of land to be served. The issue is the Common Council is being asked to amend certain languages in Chapters 10 and 18 of the municipal code and Section 20 of the zoning code to require subdivisions and other divisions of land in the city of Port Washington to be served by public sewer and water facilities. The staff recommends the Common Council approve the ordinance, and this has also been seen by the Planning Commission. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not much to add, because the ordinance at its essence is to require public sewer and water with subdivisions or other divisions of lands within the city. In order to do so, language needed to be amended or repealed in 3 different sections of the municipal code. That's Chapter 10, but also Chapter 18, that's subdivision control, and Chapter 20, that's the zoning ordinance. And because of Chapter 18 and Chapter 20, this matter was referred to Plan Commission, and as echoed by the mayor, the Plan Commission last night unanimously recommended the council approve the ordinance. Staff recommendation is the same.
Any questions or concerns? Mr. Benning?
Yeah, Bob, I guess you're recommending this, but is there anything out there that is going to cause issues for somebody at this point? You know, where like on the west side, we don't have enough capacity or something like that. And I say that only because that's what I've heard. You know, if somebody wanted to annex some property in from the town of Port and do a development, today, we couldn't service them.
Actually, I want to stay in my lane. I know Public Works has been looking at that. But say there was a parcel of land on the west side, it was annexed as a subdivision or some type of residential development, they could go forward with development and not change the sewer capacity on their end. So they're looking at a little more holistic look at that. So to answer your question, could a vacant land on the west side be annexed in and develop? Right now, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Mr. Brown?
So I just wanted to add another component to this, and that's related to existing uses. So as is noted in the memo for Chapter 20, the zoning ordinance, any legal non-conforming use which has existed before May 19th would continue to be in use as it is at this particular time. In reviewing the properties that have either on-site water or waste disposal, there is a limited amount of properties that do. So from the standpoint of how does this ordinance impact existing uses, it's in a very limited capacity. For example, related specifically to water and wells, all of the properties that have wells right now, with the exception of one, is non-potable water used primarily for irrigation. So I just wanted to point that out because really there's a limited impact that it would have on existing developed properties within the city.
And I do know BPW is looking at it, but I think we need to be a little more aggressive in staying ahead of future development, whether it's north, south, or west, not east, but
There's limited opportunities.
yeah, they float.
Yeah.
So I just think we need to not be a roadblock on these things and be more aggressive in planning.
Agreed. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the ordinance.
I move to approve ordinance 2023-11.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any questions or concerns on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. That takes us on to B, Park and Rec Board. Discussion and possible action tonight on a memorandum of understanding for use of the concession stand at the municipal field with Port Washington Youth Baseball Incorporated, also known as Port Washington Youth Baseball Softball Associations. Should Parks and Rec Board approve the memorandum of understanding? The staff recommendation is to approve the MOU as written. Tyler Menzel is here to speak about it, but of course, if we're talking baseball, Tyler needs a walk-up. Go, Tyler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This memorandum of understanding is something that was already approved by this board in 2022. There have been some slight changes to this due to some of the history of the concession stand, primarily as it concerns the appliances that Port Washington Youth Baseball and Softball had put into that concession stand prior to having an agreement. Those appliances, due to concern of their wear and tear and use by other organizations who wanted to use the stand, they're providing an opportunity with the city to take over ownership of those appliances and allow us to provide the use of which would allow us to use the concession stand for any groups that want to use it. That being said, after evaluating the value of those appliances, the other amendment to the MOU or change the MOU would be 5-year free usage of that concession stand and prolong the agreement to a 5-year agreement. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would recommend a motion to approve the MOU with Port Washington Youth Baseball and Softball, or a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
So before we get into the motion, Tyler, I just wanted to thank you. I mean, this just makes sense. Port Youth Baseball, all of our other leagues, soccer, football, volleyball, I mean, they're all partners. They're all our community and citizens, and this fee waiver, just, it makes sense. And I appreciate you going about it with a lot of common sense to continue to build that bridge with, you know, an intricate part of our community. Those, Mike and I we played park and rec baseball when we were kids. And, you know, now it's a private entity. So for us to support their success is very important to me. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. I'm sorry. Other comments or questions, Mr. Benning?
Tyler, the equipment that we're purchasing indirectly, has it been inspected and maintained since it was purchased by the organization? And is it not going to die next year and we're going to have to replace it? Or are we on the hook to replace this stuff if it does fail?
Sure. So the equipment that's in the stand right now is a lot of it's pretty old. It's 10 plus years old. Some of like the soda cooler that's in there generally is worth $4,000+ brand new. There's ways of replacing some of that equipment without it being a huge expense. For example, a soda cooler, if we were to go through like a Coca-Cola company or a 7-Up, they'll supply a soda cooler as long as us, Port Washington Baseball, the high school booster club, as long as they're purchasing the soda through the vendor. So there are avenues we can go to make sure that there aren't big financial hits on it. But in terms of a formal inspection, no.
Okay. I guess let's just make sure those assets get put on the list and with a refresh, you know, before they're totally past the end of life.
Sure.
Thank you, though. I agree with what the mayor said, that this has been a little contentious in the past, and let's get beyond that, so.
And I appreciate your stewardship, Mr. Benning. Any questions or concerns? Otherwise, we'd be looking for a motion to accept the memorandum of understanding.
I would move to approve the memorandum of understanding between Port Washington Youth Baseball.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second. Oh, Mike, you can have it.
All right. Seconded by Mr. Gasper. Any questions or concerns on the motion? Yes.
This is something that I can't specifically find when I'm reading through this, exactly where we take over the coolers and everything like that. Is it in there somewhere? I read through this earlier and I just couldn't find it.
Page 3.
Page 3?
Section 2.
Okay.
So it'd be on page 3.
I think we got her now.
Section
Okay,
10.
All right, I'm good now. I just wanted to make sure it was actually in there. Right here. Okay.
You got it?
good. Got it. Thank you.
All right. So there's a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Then moving into new business. Consideration and possible action on Resolution 2023-7 establishing polling place for Ward 8, 4th Aldermanic District of the City of Port Washington for a special election and, if needed, special primary election for the 24th Assembly District. The issue is pursuant to Executive Order Number 198 issued by Governor Tony Evers. A special election will be held on Tuesday, July 18, 2023, for the representative to the Assembly for the 24th Assembly District, and if needed, a special primary will be held on Tuesday, June 20th, 2023. Adoption of Resolution 2023-7 is to establish the Ward 8 polling place outside of the City of Port Washington using the Village of Grafton polling place for those two elections. The staff recommendation from the city clerk requires the common council approve resolution 2023-7, allowing the Ward 8 polling location to be moved to the Village of Grafton polling location at 715 6th Avenue at Grace Lutheran Church, Grafton, Wisconsin, for the special election to be held on July 18th and the special primary to be held on June 20th, if needed. Wow. And that is letter B of the World Book Encyclopedia. Ms. Westerbeek.
Covering it all. So I'm certain that you had time to review the rest of this. There will definitely be election in July. The primary won't be known until midweek, the week of May 22nd. At this time, it appears that there's very much likely to be a primary. However, until the candidacy paperwork has been submitted in a timely manner and approved, it is not certain. This is a cooperation with the Village of Grafton and the Grafton Clerk's Office to provide us with a polling location as a substantial staffing and cost-saving measure to the city. Ward 8, as you know, is a new district that is also covered by Alderman Benning of District 4, so he is 4 and 8. And at this time, there is 0 population in this district. It is the Highland Point subdivision that is being built out off of Misty Ridge. There are homes that are built, sold, but to my knowledge, there is no population there now. However, the building inspector has informed me that he has issued occupancy permits for them. So whether or not individuals will be present within the 28-day required deadline to be able to register and vote from those locations is highly unlikely for the primary. Could it happen in the next 2 weeks and make the deadline? It's possible. But to my knowledge, at this point, there is no population there at this time. So we certainly will take care of all the other election-related activities before, during, and after this time, including early voting, registration, mail-out absentee, should there be any with population that may arrive. We also will handle all of the post-election submission of reports and everything that is required. I've been submitting those for Ward 8, although they've been 0 each time at this point, but we're totally prepared to do that. I will take care of ordering the ballots and all the other aspects that are involved with that. So do you have any specific questions that I may be able to answer?
Mr. Planer?
I just have a general question. Will Ward 8 ever become absorbed by Ward 4?
Love this.
I'm sorry,
Will Ward 8 ever become a part of Ward 4?
Ward 8 is a standalone ward.
Yep.
The reason it is combined with Ward 4 is for reporting purposes only. And on election day, Ward 4 and Ward 8 appear on the same poll book as part of the reporting. However, they have their own ballots. Ward 8 has got a different county supervisory district, assembly, state. It also has a different school district. It is in the Grafton School District, not the Port Washington School District. So they will always have their own ballot. However, our municipal offices, mayor and alderperson, will be on that ballot as they were annexed into the city.
Thank you.
Just like to point out that this particular, what was an empty field, would have been in Ward 4 if it was annexed before the redistricting last year, or 2 years ago now, and for whatever reason, it got moved by the county board, I believe, to a different supervisory district for why, I don't know. They moved an empty field.
Sorry, I opened a can of worms, and I apologize, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, you don't have to apologize. I just feel like I'm on public radio. Talking wards and zoning. No. All right. So is there any other questions on this, Mr. Benning?
Susan, thank you for a very creative solution to what could have been an awful lot of work for probably minimal, if any, voters. So next thing we have to do is figure out how Town of Port can take over all of our elections or something like that. With that, I'll move to approve staff's recommendation.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, moving into public comments. Any public comments before we close out the meeting tonight? Taylor, last shot. All right. With that, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? This meeting is adjourned.